Stories Philippines Podcast.
A shadow of a doubt. An unsettling quiet in the wake of a deafening roar. In the heart of a celebration meant to unify a nation, what happens to the questions no one dares to ask? When a country stands triumphant, draped in the glory of gold, does the glitter blind us to the rot beneath? Or does a collective joy, so fiercely willed, become a temporary, beautiful madness, a desperate distraction from a truth too terrible to name? What becomes of the small, persistent unease that once whispered in the corners of conversation? It is smoothed over by handshakes and televised smiles, folded into the choreography of parades and the ritual of speeches. Reporters with microphones chase the bright moments. Talk shows replay the highlights until the edges of controversy fray from exhaustion. The questions shrink, not because answers have been found, but because attention has been redirected. A spotlight so intense makes shadows deeper, and in those darkened places, inconvenient facts wait, patient, unlit. Celebration is an engine that burns itself on emotion, fueling itself with an incessant loop of images. Flags snapping in wind, faces smeared with paint, children lifted onto shoulders. The spectacle demands participation. It asks citizens to trade skepticism for euphoria, criticism for loyalty. There is social pressure, a gentle policing of demeanor that says dissent during triumph is almost indecent. To speak of failures in the middle of a victory lap feels like a betrayal of something larger, a refusal to share in the communal high. So the questions are shelved, deferred in the name of unity. But silence is not erasure. Unasked questions accumulate like unread letters at a threshold. They find ways to be felt, in casual bitterness around kitchen tables, in late-night messages deleted before sending, in the quiet jitter of those who remember different histories. Sometimes the unsaid surfaces as rumor. Sometimes it becomes a private wound. Those who profit most from the spectacle have little interest in reopening old debates. Institutions, narratives, and careers consolidate around the victorious image. Acknowledging rot would demand repair, redistribution, and accountability. Messy processes that spoil the picture and imperil privileges. There is another possibility. The jubilation itself mutates into a strategy. If joy can be manufactured, it can be sustained. If sustained, it can be used. Political operatives and marketeers understand the economy of feeling. They amplify triumph with carefully timed ceremonies, symbolic gestures, and ever-present reminders of success. The emotional momentum makes critique feel not only unpopular but unnatural. This is not necessarily a conspiracy so much as a tendency. The human appetite for certainty and comfort in narratives that make us feel good about belonging. Collective joy becomes a social adhesive, and adhesives are sticky. Once in place, they resist prying. Yet truth has a stubbornness of its own. Time erodes facades, cracks widen. The questions return, sometimes gentler, sometimes louder, carried by new voices or by the slow accumulation of facts that cannot be smoothed away by a smile. The reemergence may come as investigation, protest, or simply a shift in mood when the next failure exposes what was concealed. And when the questions come back, they test the fortitude of the unified moment. Will the polity continue to protect the myth, or will it allow scrutiny and the possibility of change? There is a moral complexity in choosing whether to speak. For some, Silence is survival, an understandable concession in environments where dissent brings risk. For others, silence is complicity, a small surrender with large consequences. The cost of breaking the celebratory trance can be social exile, professional backlash, or worse. But the cost of never asking can be a slow communal decline. Institutions corrupted by unchallenged power, injustices ossified into tradition, histories rewritten to flatter those in charge. The fate of those unasked questions depends on what a society values more: the immediate comfort of unity, or the longer, messier work of truth-telling and repair. Celebration can be genuine and still incomplete. Joy need not be a cover for rot. It can coexist with scrutiny if the culture allows room for both pride and critique. The harder, braver possibility is a patriotism that includes the duty to question, a loyalty that understands accountability as love for what is shared. So a shadow of a doubt endures. Sometimes it is dimmed by noise and light. Sometimes it returns, amplified by time and memory. Either way, the unanswered questions are not inert. They press upon the living, demanding either gentle attention or forceful reckoning. The question, whether the glitter blinds us or the jubilation masks a deeper truth, is itself an invitation to look, even when what we might find is uncomfortable, to hold our celebrations lightly, and to remember that the brightest parades can pass, but the consequences of what we choose not to ask may not. The air on the 29th of November 2005 was electric, a charge that ran from the capital's oldest stones to the farthest reaches of the archipelago. Manila was a furnace of national pride. Flags, the color of a sunrise and a clear ocean, waved from every window and overpasses. The Philippines had done the impossible, clinching the overall championship of the Southeast Asian Games, a victory that tasted sweeter because it was so long overdue. The cheers were an act of release, a national catharsis. Strangers embraced on the streets of Makati and Cebu, believing for one glorious moment that all the broken pieces of the country had suddenly, miraculously, clicked into place. Yet, a discordant note was playing beneath the soaring orchestra of celebration. The metallic tang in the air, was it just exhaust and sweat, or something more ancient, the scent of a wound left to fester? The joyful drums struggled to drown out a ghostly, relentless whisper. "Hello, Garci." The triumph was undeniable, but it was forged in the same year that saw the nation's political foundations tremble. Impeachment attempts, massive street protests, and the specter of wiretapped conversations, all suggesting manipulation at the highest rungs of government, haunted the victory. It was a golden contradiction, a horror not of fanged beasts, but of a shared national trauma set against a backdrop of manufactured jubilee. I am Jessica, and you are listening to Stories Philippines podcast. This is Season 4, Episode 9, Triumph and Shadow, the contradiction of the 2005 SEA Games. Tonight's tale requires a clear mind and a sturdy resolve. Before we delve deeper into this paradox of pride and peril, a word of caution. This journey touches on the heavy weight of collective memory and the unsettling realities of national deception. Themes some may find deeply disturbing. Proceed with a conscious awareness of the darkness. If the memory of that year or any other moment of haunting contradictions still lingers in your thoughts, share the details with us at storiesphpodcast@gmail.com. You can find detailed show notes and all the ways to support our work in the description below. Access exclusive content and extra episodes through our Patreon, and follow us on social media for daily folklore facts and chilling fragments of history. Imagine the Rizal Memorial Stadium complex in that November. It is a structure heavy with history, built in the 1930s, an arena that has seen the arc of the Filipino experience, from the early years of the Commonwealth to the darkest hours of the Japanese occupation, and through decades of post-war struggle. Now, it was alight, transformed into a shrine of sudden, unexpected success. The roar of the crowd was a physical thing, a wave that could push back the surrounding city's endless, humid grit. For the brief duration of the Games, the nation performed a collective act of forgetting. The political poison of the Hello Garci tapes, which had seeped into every public debate, every family dinner, every morning radio broadcast, was temporarily shelved. Psychologists observing nations under duress have a name for this: a dissociative coping mechanism, a massive, unconscious effort to avoid acknowledging an unbearable truth by creating a compelling, positive counter-narrative. The pain of potential national deception was real, but the need for a symbol of goodness, of unity, was more immediate, more primal. Stories from the time vividly capture this emotional schism. Carlo, a listener who wrote to us about his memories of that month in Quezon City, described the feeling of being caught between two different realities. I saw the flags everywhere, the sheer happiness, and it was infectious. But then, you'd hear someone mention the president and the laughter would die. It was a nervous energy, like we were all aware of a monster under the bed, but we agreed to only look at the ceiling. This shared silence, this mutual agreement to celebrate now and worry later, was the true emotional architecture of the time. A young swimmer from Davao, whose name we will change to Annalyn to protect her privacy, gave an interview at the time that spoke volumes. She felt the fierce pride of the win, the culmination of years of relentless training. But the media frenzy outside the pool felt tainted. We worked so hard. We were genuinely happy. But every interview felt like a distraction for the politicians. It was like we were the brightly painted target, meant to draw the eye away from the shadows moving just outside the frame. The athletes' victories were being subtly weaponized, their genuine effort co-opted for a political purpose that had nothing to do with sport. The use of grand spectacle to overshadow political scandal is a mechanism as old as civilization. 2,000 years ago, the Roman emperors deployed bread and circuses, free grain and gladiatorial games to appease a restive populace, ensuring that their focus remained on the arena, not on the corruption of the Senate. In modern history, similar patterns repeat. The 1984 Sarajevo Winter Olympics, for example, briefly provided a powerful symbol of unity for Yugoslavia, a moment of national pride just years before the country descended into devastating conflict. The Filipino experience in 2005 was another link in this long chain of history, a local expression of a global political dark art. To truly grasp the depth of this national contradiction, one must look to Filipino folklore, which is rich with tales of deception and hidden realities. The Aswang, perhaps the most pervasive and adaptable of all Filipino mythical creatures, serves as a perfect metaphor. The Aswang is a shapeshifter. It lives among the people, often taking the form of a beautiful woman, a kindly neighbor, or even a respected elder. It smiles, it works, it participates in community life, all while harboring a dark, monstrous hunger. It is the danger that hides in plain sight, a vivid embodiment of the fear of betrayal by those you trust most. The tales are a warning. A popular story from the Bicol region tells of a barangay captain, a community leader, who was secretly an Aswang. During the day, he was the picture of integrity, settling disputes and organizing town events. But under the moon, he would stalk the outlying homes. The villagers feared the Aswang, but the greater terror was the realization that their protector, their leader, was also their predator. The 2005 Games, in this light, were a kind of national vigil,
a collective prayer held under the watchful, smiling face of an Oswang. The joy was real. The athletes, the medals, the national anthems swelling with pride. But the leadership that presided over it all was tainted by the shadow of corruption. The country was asked to cheer for the face of triumph while ignoring the creature hiding behind it. Tito, an elderly man from San Fernando, Pampanga, remembers this tension perfectly. We had the TV on for the games. We cheered when the boxing team won gold. But as soon as the commentary ended, my son and his friends would start arguing about the president again. It felt like we were toggling between two channels, one of beautiful truth and one of ugly lies. The joy was a glass shield. It let us see the hope, but it was so fragile it could break any moment. The narrative of 2005 is not just political, it is intensely sensory. Sight. Contrast the blinding white light of the stadium spotlights with the sudden, familiar darkness of a city block plunged into a rolling blackout, a constant reminder of infrastructure decay and mismanagement. The gold of the medals against the faded, threadbare colors of the protesters' banners on EDSA, the forced, wide smiles of the dignitaries contrasted with the weary, often guarded eyes of the average citizen caught between celebration and crisis. Sound. The deafening, unifying cheer that erupts for a victory against the low, persistent, and chilling hum of the unaddressed Hello Garci tape, a sound that refused to fully vanish from the national conversation. The celebratory clatter of fireworks versus the sharp, unmistakable rhythm of police truncheons against protest shields, heard only blocks away from the cheering crowds.
Smell. The fresh, invigorating smell of damp earth and new paint in the refurbished stadium areas, battling the omnipresent scent of vehicle exhaust, pollution, and the faint, coppery smell of fear that lingers after a street confrontation. The games became an architectural and olfactory metaphor for the nation's split reality. Newly constructed, pristine arenas stood as shining islands, surrounded by the crumbling infrastructure of neighborhoods suffering from decades of neglect and corruption. The athletes, held aloft as national heroes, often went back to provincial homes with unreliable electricity, leaky roofs, and the constant struggle of daily life. This tension between surface and substance is a recurring theme in Filipino narratives and in the very stories we receive here. A submission from Miguel in Laguna shared a particularly illustrative memory. His father, a man who rarely showed strong emotion, hung the flag outside their small home and watched every event with fierce concentration. But every night, Miguel recalls, his father would tell him stories about the Tikbalang, a half-man, half-horse creature of folklore. The Tikbalang is known for leading travelers astray, confusing them with illusions, making them lose their way by distorting the familiar path. Miguel's father's message was clear. The true monsters are the ones who deliberately confuse you, who make you lose your way in your own country. Watch where you step, even when everyone else is running to follow the music. It is a documented phenomenon in paranormal research that places and times of extreme, concentrated human emotion often become focal points for spiritual activity. Grief, massive loss, or intense, almost hysterical joy can theoretically thin the veil between realms. In the wake of the 2005 SEA Games, reports of strange phenomena in the Manila area spiked, especially around the old, historic government buildings and the Rizal Park area. Leah, a listener who lived near the park, shares a chilling, personal account that seems to echo the national mood. After the closing ceremony, I remember the park was eerily quiet, but the air felt thick, like before a massive storm or a moment of great change. I wasn't afraid of a person, but of the place itself. I kept seeing these fleeting, dark shapes in the peripheral vision. Too fast to be a person, too solid to be a shadow. For weeks, my dreams were the same. I was in a massive crowd, hearing the roar of a cheer, but the faces around me were dissolving, their joy turning into silent, open-mouthed terror. This account, whether interpreted literally or as a powerful manifestation of collective psychological stress, speaks to the trauma of denial. When a nation suppresses its legitimate anger, its fear, and its demand for truth in favor of a mandated celebration, that powerful unresolved emotion has to go somewhere. It lingers, becoming a psychic residue, a silent haunting of the national psyche. The ghosts of unmet promises and unaddressed injustices were perhaps the true haunting of 2005. From a more academic perspective, this collective reaction is a key facet of cognitive dissonance. The two opposing beliefs, "My country is great and triumphant," versus "My country is being led by corrupt, deceitful individuals," create an unbearable mental strain. To alleviate this, the easiest path is to suppress the painful, complex truth in favor of the simple, immediate joy. This is a survival tool, yes, but it comes at a cost: the erosion of a critical, collective ability to hold leaders accountable. Within the various religious traditions of the Philippines, the tension was also palpable. Priests, while offering prayers of thanksgiving for the athletes' success, often found themselves navigating complex political waters in their sermons. In private conversations, however, the tone shifted. Many believers turned to the more ancient concept of karma or divine retribution, whispering about how such a spectacular, tainted triumph could only lead to a greater, more spectacular fall. The fear was that God, or the spirits of the ancestors, would see through the gilded surface and punish the nation for its collective cowardice in refusing to face the truth. The long aftermath and lingering questions. The glow of the 2005 SEA Games was short-lived. The political turmoil did not cease, it merely paused. The impeachment calls returned, the protests flared anew, and the national conversation became even more polarized. The medals were put in cases, the athletes went back to their lives, but the core contradiction remained unhealed. International comparisons serve as a cautionary tale. Argentina's victory in the 1978 World Cup occurred during the height of the military junta's dirty war, a time when thousands were disappeared. The victory was a massive propaganda tool, momentarily uniting a fractured populace and distracting the world from the atrocities committed inside the country. In all such cases, Argentina, the 2005 Philippines, or any nation that uses spectacle to mask rot, the temporary relief inevitably gives way to a deeper, more enduring sickness.
The letters we receive at this podcast demonstrate the personal toll of this realization. Erica, a young woman from Manila, shared a powerful reflection on her teenage self's reaction to the event. "I was so fiercely patriotic, almost hysterically happy when we won. My face was painted, I screamed the anthem, but when my own father tried to talk about the political scandal right after the closing ceremony, I shouted at him to stop. I told him he was ruining a good thing. Now I see that I wasn't protecting the victory. I was protecting myself from the truth. We traded our ability to hold power accountable for a few weeks of mandated euphoria. I worry that the ability to face the hard truth is still missing in us." The true horror of the 2005 Games, then, is not in any supernatural entity, but in the national silence that followed the last cheer. It is the realization that a powerful, collective moment of joy can be co-opted, can be used to hold a nation captive in a state of willful blindness. The emptiness that follows the spectacle is the space where the real ghost resides, the ghost of a stolen, or at least tarnished, truth. The SEA Games of 2005 will forever stand as a complex symbol in Filipino history. The grit and sacrifice of the athletes were real, their triumph legitimate. But the context in which that triumph occurred, the shadow of massive political deception, casts a permanent pall. The question that lingers, long after the stadiums have quieted, is simple, yet devastatingly profound. What is the cost of a celebration built upon a foundation of denial? How do we find true national unity when the leadership we are asked to unite under is suspect? Where does the shadow of deception end and the genuine, deserved light of triumph truly begin. As we reflect on these moments, remember that your personal experiences, your memories, and your lingering fears are the vital core of this ongoing narrative. If you have a memory of 2005, a story of victory and suspicion, or any other haunting tale that speaks to the dark heart of the Filipino experience, we want to hear it. Email your story to stories@phpodcast@gmail.com. Find support options and show notes in the episode description. Unlock exclusive tales and behind-the-scenes content through our Patreon. For daily folklore and dark history facts, follow us on our social channels. Tonight, as you drift towards sleep, ask yourself this: what precious truth have you deliberately ignored in favor of a comforting lie? And is that lie now waiting for you in the shadows? The greatest victory is that which requires no battle. Lao Tzu. Listen to past and future episodes for more journeys into the dark heart of the Filipino story. Do not forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share this podcast. Support us financially in ways you can find in the show notes.